The market seemingly has bounced off the bottom, and many are calling for a bull run. Some are calling, though, that this is a trap. Now, which is it? Today, we have Paul from Dafi joining us to do some price analysis and look at the macro and the micro of what's going on. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. Paul is not either. And also note that a lot of what I talk about on the channel, I do own because I don't talk about crypto projects that I don't believe in or have any faith in. Special thanks to our Patreon members. We have a private Discord there. Our Patreon members get access to. Make it rain on that like button. Strap in for the show. And let's welcome Paul from Dafi. Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
I'm very excited to be here as always. Looking forward to looking at the viewers' picks. And I think you're absolutely right with what you just said. We are at a very important crossroads. So where we go from here will very much mark how we're going to end up at the end of the year, I feel. So it's an important one to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, sometimes when people think about crystal ball or like the markets and investing, somehow seasoned investors have crystal balls to see exactly what's going to happen. But in the world of investing, we deal with the world of probabilities. So we're looking at probabilities of how things play out. And we're looking at many of the indicators of how that might go. Now, what's interesting is on the macro level, there's a lot like the technicals for crypto look bullish, like the bottom may be in. If it's not in, we're near the bottom. But the fundamentals, like the economics of the world, with China having massive problems, the US probably heading into recession, China has overbuilt real estate massively. And they're now, I guess, just trying to print their way out of it. So on the macro level, the fundamentals of the world suggest the stock market will fall a lot more. And that often has an impact on crypto. But the technicals on crypto are looking somewhat good.
Yeah, I mean, very often what you'll see is the markets will have already anticipated the news that you're talking about and are actually getting ready for the next move up. So, for example, with China, we had already seen a massive bear market that was inexplicable. And we talked about the Evergrande situation, even on the show. That collapse was ahead, the market looking ahead of the problems that were coming. But now that's happened, and now what policy makers do is they usually do nothing, wait for the problem to be really bad, and then try and overcompensate and sort the problem out. So it may be that China's actually hopefully going to be hitting a low and turning up, and everything else will be synchronizing to the upside. But if we look at where US equities have gone, which we should really look at a chart of, we can see that they've been on a tear. So the S&P has been moving upwards very aggressively. And, you know, we've been bullish. And I think I said on the show last week that I liked the S&P up until this line, which is why we're at such an important point, because I think it's fair enough to look for a bit of a pullback in everything, because we've had a good run. We've had a good risk on environment these past few weeks, and there's been some really good gains. So I'm expecting the markets to book some profits here and retrace. And then it's really a question of whether people will come in again to buy that dip, or whether they're going to let the market fall much further. So let me just quickly show you the chart of Asian equities in China. This is the chart that I've been tracking, and you can probably see here quite clearly that it's been in a massive downward trend. And it was only very recently, and by recently I mean in June time, that I was even considering that it started to make a new low, because it broke in this trend line, it formed a small base, it's come back again, which is to be expected, but it's had its panic. The panic was already here. So it wouldn't surprise me to see it go up as the economic data looks bad. Now, something that's very important to the US market is obviously the NASDAQ. We want to see the NASDAQ moving higher, because I think it will move kind of in correlation to the blockchain technologies, which will be, driving all of this forward. The semiconductor stocks and the technology stocks, companies like Facebook, will ultimately drive blockchain further and keep the interest there. So if those stocks start to do well again, I think that's a good sign for the market overall. And the Nasdaq's been performing extremely well. So you can see here that we had a cross of the moving averages to the downside, which is usually a bearish signal. We've had a really big downward trend and a very decent rally. So this is such a sharp rally that I'm sure the market has been caught short and they're being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And that's what we call a bear squeeze. Now, I'm pretty sure that, it seems obvious that the market, people who've gone long, who saw that move ahead of the turn, are looking to book some profits. So I would expect to see a pullback, and then we'll see how the market trades from there. And just to give you another little macro piece of information that I'm watching very closely, as you know, the US yield market is extremely important to me. And the 10-year yields, which had formed a head and shoulders, it's just kind of managed to gain a bit of ground, get back over this neckline of this head and shoulders. I would have preferred it if it stayed below. So I think we're going to have to endure a little push higher here, maybe towards 3%. But as long as it stays below this 3.24%, I'm going to keep a generally bullish view. And I just want to show you one last chart before we start looking at the crypto. This is the 2-year yields. And as you can see, this is looking to potentially break back up again. So it means that US yields are looking to break higher. Now, I know Joe Biden signed an inflation bill. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what he's trying to do there. But you've got to be very careful in trying to make the market do what you want. So I'd be kind of cautious, because you can cause problems by trying to manipulate the market. So, but either way, I haven't seen what it actually is. But as far as
just the relabeling of another bill, they threw in a little bit towards what they called inflation reduction. But I don't know how the government spending $700 billion creates less inflation, right? That's part of what's created the massive inflation. So it's just a naming gimmick, right? It's campaign finance reform that was passed forever ago did not reform campaign finance. It just made it harder for somebody to defeat an incumbent, actually. So it's just a mechanism that Washington plays, a naming mechanism that makes it sound like they're doing what's on everyone's mind. Well, it doesn't really solve the problem. I think you're right. Government often will screw up incentives to make things worse, not better.
And I think that the acid test really is how are the financial markets reacting to this, and we're seeing that yields are pushing up, certainly in the 2-year. I don't want to see this go too much higher. I think we've got to be careful. It may break this 3.5%. If it does, then it could pop further. And I would like to see how the dollar reacts to it. And I'd like to see how crypto reacts to it. So I don't mind a pullback in crypto, because I think it's due. And I think the stock market's due a pullback. So I think we've got to put our sort of cautionary hats on for the next week or two. But then I think it'd be fine to say that this pullback is one to buy into. Well, I'm certainly staying positive into it. I'm looking at more of an opportunity, a second pullback to get in for those that didn't get in the first wave. But we certainly need to wait for it to stabilize on this pullback before just jumping in, if that makes sense. The dollar's started to move back up. It's not aggressive. It's just, it has topped nicely and it's been trending down. It's now held an upward trend line, which it dipped below. So I thought that had broken, but it went back over it. This was a developing downward trend line that it's managed to get through. It's not critical that it stays below that line. I just would have preferred it, but I don't want to see it edge too much higher. Otherwise, it would look like the dollar's going to have another go at this high, and we'd have to endure another final dollar phase, bull phase, which may impact the asset market. So it may mean that we'd have to sit out another retracement before we can call the absolute low. So it'd be a lot cleaner if we could say the low's already in. I'm still working on that basis for now. I mean, when I say the low, I mean the low in crypto, the high in the US dollar, and the low in the asset markets. I'm going to work from that model for the moment until proven otherwise. But I've got to acknowledge that there are signs that are kind of running counter to that view just slightly, and that's to be expected. We can't have it all our own way. There has to be some pullback. So, and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, it makes sense. We've had such a sharp run up on. If we look at do you mind if we turn to the Bitcoin chart?
Yeah, sure, of course.
And we've had such a sharp run up. What are you seeing with Bitcoin from here?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. Bitcoin was lagging the move for compared to Ethereum, and I thought that it would actually play catch up. So I was really bullish last week, and I was expecting it to try and take out this 25,401 resistance point. It's been a little bit more subdued than I would have liked, and so it's broken. Today it's just dipping below this upward trend line. But that doesn't end this trend. It could just change the angle of trend. The real, the most important one is this lower one. So it would be a little disappointing if it doesn't move up from here and break this 25,000 level. It's had a fairly good run from this 17,000 low. But what we're really looking for is some form of acceleration. So I want to see the bears covering their shorts, the bulls, jumping on board this trend. And I think they're just being cautious because of the factors that I've mentioned before. So the chart is still bullish, but I would be braced for a pullback. That's all I would say here, just because there are some factors that are running counter to it. And as far as Ethereum goes, very similar thing. Like Ethereum is definitely leading the way. I mean, this has been great. It took out this 1720 level that we were looking for. And the next target is 2143, but it looks again like it's going to come back for a retracement. I don't mind if it touches the 1720 level as long as it holds it, and that'd be a really good place for it to stop. So if it comes back towards 1720, that'd be a good buy level, and it then should move higher. Now, if it breaks that, we're going to be looking around 1,500, 1,500 as a pullback level as its first support point. And again, this moving average, as you can see, the trend has been very aggressive to the downside. This is now turning up. So this is a good sign. As far as the RSI is going, this just tells you whether the market is running a bit hot in terms of the trend. It was pretty overbought just recently, so it's running down a little bit. But in a good trend, this shouldn't dip below 50. So it's 54 now. So if it goes down a little bit more, that's fine. But I'd like to see it turn around and go back up again, which is what it's been doing recently here. It's been holding over this 50 level, which is fairly consistent with a good upward trend. So it's really kind of steady as she goes with Ethereum. With Bitcoin, a little bit more of a concern that it's not accelerated yet. But it's not by any means it's not showing anything other than just being a bit reluctant to rally rather than it looking bearish.
Now, interestingly enough, on the Ethereum side, we've seen that acceleration. They've had fundamentally something going on, that they're heading towards the ETH merge, right? What we used to call it 2.0, they're now calling it a merge with essentially 2.0. And that there was some news that was looking like it was going to be good, and so far that's what everyone's expecting. And so it's definitely buy the rumor. The question is, the sell the news situation is coming up, and if that rollout happens and it's as expected, probably it'll be a sell the news event. If it's worse than expected, it will probably dump back down some. If for some reason it goes super smooth and everyone's so excited, there's a slight chance, I'd give it just a 10% chance, that fundamentally it could push things higher. And so that's probably why we saw that acceleration on ETH over Bitcoin, was just the excitement leading up to that merge. They've been working on ETH 2.0 since like 2015. So 7 years in the making, and here we are, close to that event finally. And imagine it does convert to proof of stake over proof of work. That would be amazing. We would be so excited to have the transaction fees on ETH permanently be much less. A
Yes,
lot of
definitely.
people that are really concerned about the amount of electricity that goes into proof of work. They can be excited that proof of stake is going to make things a lot cheaper there. So that does allow some institutions that have to worry about their carbon footprint to be more bullish on ETH. So there's some good things that come out of that, and that's coming up possibly soon.
And is there any timeline for that? Because I think sell the rumor, buy the rumor, sell the fact could be, important if it's close.
I'm just going to Google when is ETH merge and see what we've got. It says no. I don't know when that transition is supposed to be in this article. Doesn't make it easily clear. So I don't know if we have an estimated date right now. I've heard an estimated date, but we'll see, right?
Yeah. Sure.
It is like changing the wings on an airplane that is in the sky and is full of passengers. It's a very difficult thing to accomplish. I hope it goes smoothly. It could crash and burn a system that has billions of dollars into it. So they have to be extra cautious.
I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exciting. Now, what would you say if we went to look at Bitcoin and we were to look at probabilities, because there's some pressures pushing it to break up higher and continue this acceleration trend? There's some pressures to push it back down. What would you give the chances? Would you give 50-50 towards a break higher or break lower?
I'd say it's 60-40 to go up. But I think, that's like over the next sort of month or so. And that's a lot, like for this week, I think it would probably go down. So I'd expect it to come down close potentially towards this moving average, which is where there's some support around 21,868. I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all. But there, I would like it to stop. I'd like it to stop before there, really, because you've got these little points of support. And if they can hold, that's 1, 2. If that can hold, it would look like it's compressing higher, which is a good sign. Now, it really should have accelerated out of this high at 24,772. And I was looking for this move to either this downward trend line or as an extended target, or at least this resistance point here at 28,547. So if we take a step back and look at how it's moving up, I mean, it still is trending higher. It's just it's going in these sort of choppy waves that suggest that every time it tries to get higher, it gets sold into, which is a bit frustrating. What we want is a nice, smooth, clean upward trend that shows that there's solid buying and there's short covering as well. So I'd still 60-40 say it's going up, but for this week, given the way the dollar's playing, I would just be a little bit cautious. I think you could wait for a pullback, and then you'd have better risk reward.
For specifically trading, those that are trading the price of Bitcoin, I like to wait till I have better odds too. 60-40, it seems like those are good odds. Not typically good enough for me. I'd rather see how it plays out, and then I don't like 60-40. I like 80-20, where it's like 80% likely or even 75% likely to trade one way. So for now, I'm just sitting watching the way it's going to go. I do have some cash on the sides. I'm not specifically going to throw it into Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's a big boy that often determines how other things are going to go. A lot of my money I have sitting on the side for altcoins, some of which we'll be covering today.
So the 80-20 trade for us was when it broke this 1280 in Ethereum, because it was a very clean technical pattern. You can see it went 1, 2, 3, boom, straight through it. That was where it was the start of a trend. It was clean. There was good risk reward. All those things add together. Bitcoin is now a catch-up play, which is why I like it. But I liked it last week for that. But it didn't catch up. It sort of lagged still, which is maybe a little bit less bullish on it. So I was probably 70-30 on it going up last week. It tried. It's not done a whole lot. So that's why I've called on it slightly. So, but it's not bearish, and it's not 50-50. So I just think pull back and then back up.
That makes sense. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Even when things are trying to go higher, it almost always plays out that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take a look over at Cardano.
Yes, indeed. So if we move over to Cardano, so you can see this was one that very solid downward trend. We spiked low. It tried to break lower again. And this has been gently moving up. Some other altcoins have been moving up faster. This is moving up gently. Now, I'm bullish on this on a 60-40 basis. And I'm bullish because it had its chance to break lower. It failed, and it's now retracing. But I would still wait before I bought it, because it needs to break this equivalent. The equivalent of 1280 in Ethereum would be this level here, which is around 67 cents. If it gets through that, then it would have made a double bottom pattern, and it would also properly break this downward trend, which is still in effect. So those two things need to happen for me before I can get properly bullish. We're still operating below this trend line. And so if it's going to go back up all the way to $1.5 and $2.9 and into new highs, it needs to make a solid base first, and it's trying to do that. But for me, I have to wait until it's taken out this resistance point, because it could always just go sideways and then start going down again. If it starts to approach, if we just imagine the price action coming back down to like 44 cents, then warning bells will start to go off for me, because you've got one support point, two support points. If it starts coming back to that support point again, I would be very, very cautious. Now, it hasn't done that yet. I'm just sort of saying, because I don't know when we're next going to talk about it. But for the moment, it's working its way higher, and I think we've got to let it work its way higher.
Yeah, I'm excited about Cardano. I'm excited about these kind of prices. I like things cheap. I like things that I can believe in long term. Cardano's always ticked that box of believing in long term for me, and didn't think it would break under $1 again. And here it is at 52 cents, and that's after touching down to 40 cents. All right, let's take a look at animal concerts.
Yeah, I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, or last week maybe. So it's an intriguing setup, and I think we were saying that this is still in a downward trend, which then we got this really strong. Let me just move it away from the bars, the volume bars. So we got this massive volume event on the 13th of August, and the price shot up and then promptly shot straight back down again. So it's still struggling really to hold its support. I mean, this would have been great if it got up and at least stayed around here, but it kind of lost it all really, and it's slowly dripping away, and it's extremely close to its all-time low. So I think we've got to be really cautious on this one and wait for another opportunity. And by that opportunity, I mean, I want to see it going back up again, and I want to see it take out that level that it failed in order to indicate that it's created a base, because there's not really enough evidence here now.
Yeah, this is one that's in the early days. Fundamentally, I like what they're doing a lot. They have if you haven't seen the interview where they came on and spoke about what they're doing, that interview is key for those that are looking at this and wondering what it's all about and is there some long-term value. There's a lot of bullish things about this. They're very well connected to all the top musicians and recording artists in the world, and they're going to be helping bring those artists to the different metaverses out there so that they can do virtual. It flipped me right out.
Yeah.
Some of these artists on animal concerts have done like the stuff in, some of the games that are out there. What are the big games? They've actually done some concerts in those big games. I can't think of them, like not PUBG, but I forget which one. they're going to bring these kind of concerts to the different metaverse projects out there. So I really like what they're doing. It's really cool. Yeah, let me just share my screen again. That was interesting. I hit the back button. It totally kicked me out.
Okay, cool.
I was focused on the wrong window. So, yes, but price, it's still in that early days, that vesting period. It's going negative, leading to better and better pickups. But let me share where the markets are that you can get it. A lot of the markets that you can get are some of these smaller exchanges. MEXC Global. Huobi is actually a pretty good size exchange. Gate.io, BitMax, CoinX, LA Token, Bitmart. So there are places that you can get it. And probably it's going to, the price is going to suffer for a little bit more at least. Let's see if we can get an idea of the market cap. Fully diluted market cap, according to Coin Market Cap, is 10 million. And I wouldn't be surprised if it gets cheaper while some of those vesting problems continue to happen. So,
yeah. So this is one where you would be interested in it and lock it away for a long time and probably not look at the price action. I mean, again, it depends how you want to trade, really.
It's cheap, and it's just a long-term hold for me that I'm content to hold it for a year or 2 or 3 while this vision that they have continues to roll out. I feel like they have a solid team and the right connections to make something happen. So even though I don't generally rate this as a buy, I've been buying just because it's very long-term hold. So for me, it's been a buy, even though, well, I'm going to say wait for what, my thoughts, if I weren't just holding it for long term, and because in the short term, it's probably going to go down more. So as a short-term trade, it would totally be a wait for me. Maybe even a sell. But for me, I'm content to, what happens sometimes, and the reason I do this is sometimes I forget to keep looking at the charts, and I miss a moment because there's 18,000 altcoins out there, and I miss that bottom, and before I know it, it's 3 times higher than the price I passed up.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just make little buys into projects or accumulate a little bit more and a little bit more while it's at a price that's satisfactory for me.
Yeah, so sometimes you can put what's called a price alert, either with a broker or with a charting system, and you can just say, well, let me know if it's at this point. So what I would do with something like this is put a price alert around this level here that I'm showing you. So around 0.010,450. So around here, I put a price alert. I'd also put a price alert lower down. So if you take this level here, 0.0007, if you take that, then that might be a good point as well to get a price alert. So if it goes up, it can tell you that perhaps it's changing its trend, but it's ahead of the level that I'm interested in. So I can start watching it there. I also get an alert if it goes lower, and then I'm thinking, well, is this getting cheaper? Will there be any signs that people are bailing out, capitulating? And then I can start looking at it potentially to buy into that. If there's a sharp downward move and a sharp move up, then perhaps all the selling pressure is gone. So that's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is, like you say, and I've done it before, you just buy a very small amount and then just watch it and see what's happening. If it starts to go into profit, then you can add some more to it. But that's also another way I just thought I'd share, that you can keep an eye on a project.
Perfect. Why don't we take a look over at Fidira?
Sure. Yeah, Fidira. Now, this is really interesting. So thank you for whoever asked us to look at this. Now, why it's interesting is because this is making a proper base. In fact, I think when I looked at it a few hours ago, it had, or an hour or so ago, it was just breaking through this 0.00858 level, which is key. It's a very important low. So what it's making here is a double bottom. So this is technically a buy. I'd say it's 70-30 if you want the odds on it, 70-30 to the upside. So it should hold above this level. With projects like this, where liquidity is relatively low, sometimes we've got to give it a little bit more room. So I'd be inclined to put a trend line in. Now, the first one would be so flat that it would just run almost, it's not horizontal, but it's not much above it. The next line we would draw here is this acceleration, which is where it's moving from now. So I'd like to be able to draw another line from here to this low, this recent low, to show it's accelerating again. So I'll just zoom in so you can see that a bit more clearly. So overall, this has formed a base. I want it to hold above this first line, line A, where it's negated. The whole reversal for me is through this line B, but this is a double bottom. So that's base 1, base 2. The trend is trying to move up. Downward trend line, by eye, it's probably broken it, but I'm not so sure about that as a starting point. So I can't really draw the major downward trend, but I'm going to go with the price pattern to show that it's created a reversal. So for me, this is a buy.
Awesome. Let me add that in. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this project. We've interviewed them, so you can look in the past video history on YouTube and find the video that we recorded with them talking more about it. Basically, they have all the connections to put crypto gift cards in a lot of convenience shopping, like corner convenience stores, as well as some of the bigger places. So when crypto comes back in, and it will, right now it's been a bear market and price been going downwards. There's some signs that we're bottoming out, likely at the bottom or very near the bottom. So when it swings up and a lot of people start FOMOing into crypto, it's probably good for their project that things went way slower. So they have time to get everything in order and be able to release some news, put those gift cards in different places. And with the gift cards, essentially, if you buy it, you'll get crypto with it, but you also get free NFTs with it. So it's cool what they're doing. Check out the video on Fidira. Let's take a look over at Bumper. I'm excited to talk about this one.
Just to say that you made a really good point there. And I think what's important about this crypto bear market is that the projects that are still around and then starting to flourish will be the ones that have been weeded out from obviously the ones that couldn't take the retracement. So I think it would be a really important phase to see which ones are doing well from now, because if they were going to fail, they should have failed in that massive downward move when all the sentiment was negative. So you make a really good point about looking at the very long term, right? And as you said, again, everything's a probability. We don't know for sure, but the projects that are around in the next few months and years are going to be the really interesting ones that we want to follow for, the decades that could be, game changing in their field. So it's still really exciting, even though it might not feel like it. So Bumper. Now I'm hopefully I've got the right chart here. If I could be honest, if this is the right chart, then yeah, it's got some. Actually, hang on.
I'm not sure. It hasn't. Yeah, it's not showing some data there. There might be a better version.
Yeah, let's just have a look. Bumper USD.
That's not showing a lot.
Let's try it on Bumper on crypto. No, actually, I thought I had the chart, but I don't think I have. Have you got it somewhere else?
Well,
let's try another.
If you look at it on CoinGecko, it gives the history. It doesn't give easily markable charts.
Yeah, this is a bit of a strange one because there's no other. Let's try something else down here. Let's try on the dominance and see if we haven't got that either. Shall I try CoinGecko? Let's try CoinGecko. I think that might be the...
Yeah, let's do it. That's what I'm looking at it on. And we have some history on it.
Okay. Apologies, I thought I had the right chart there. So that would be the first one there.
Yeah.
And
yep.
Right.
Baby pumpkin finance.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that one before.
Right. So this is a little tricky to look at because of the way this chart for me is not smooth or clear as the other ones really. Let's see if I can change that. No, let's go logarithmic. So it has been a really strong downward trend. This is obviously reversed out here. So we've got, what I like to look for is symmetry. So we've got a certain amount of symmetry in the downward trend. This is a reversal. It's this area here and this area here is very similar. So what it could have done, or what I would have accepted, is a little pullback and then a move higher. It's actually had a really sharp pullback. So that's a bit of a concern. I don't quite know why it's done that, but it's come back a little bit more aggressively than I would have liked. So I'm going to say just wait on this. But if it can start to recover back up to this resistance point, which seems to have disappeared from my chart, let me try and ask for the data again and see if it will give it to me. Okay, let's try 1 year. No, let's go linear and then log. No, oh, there we are. Right, so it's come back. And then, yeah, there we go. So that level looks at around 8 cents. So if it can go through 8 cents, then this whole area here and here will look like a reversal. It looked like an inverse head and shoulders, which I like. All I'm saying, if that's a true price, then that's a bit of a concern, that it's just gapped down like that. I don't like to see big gaps like that. So
one wallet sold off a ton. So this is something that can happen when you have such small trading volumes.
Yeah, it gets pushed around by one trade. Yeah,
somebody sold off $18,000 worth, and that's what we did down. And one of our community members noticed it and put it. I went ahead and bought some. So I mean, I says for me this was a buy, but just while it was at the low end, and I'd be happy if it came back even lower, because this is another one that's like a set it and forget it for me for a while. When it starts hitting some price numbers that I'm happy with, like back at 50 cents or $1, to me, I see this as a $10 potential.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah. For me, I'm happy. It's like, oh yeah, it wants to go down to 4.5, 5 cents again. Fantastic. And I don't know who that was that sold off 18,000, but thank you to whoever that was, because I was just excited to get back in some more around the 5 cent mark again.
Yeah, I mean, the trend has definitely gone. It's changed direction, and we got that from the end of June. So this is where it got renewed sort of bullishness, which was probably pretty much in line with the broader market. There's a lot of, funny you should say, like 4 cents, there's a lot of support around there. So if it gets to 4 cents, I'd like that. I really would like that to hold. So that's where I would be thinking is, it should stop and you could have a little nibble, which I might do now you've said what you've said about potentially it going back to $1. But I would totally accept also that this could get a lot cheaper because the pattern hasn't completed yet. So it's really just sort of putting your toe in the water to have something that you can add to the position if it turns around. So despite what I would do, I always err on the side of caution in when I'm giving my view generally. So I would still say it's a wait because there's still a few more things structurally that it needs to do before it's going to start looking properly bullish again. So, and a good sign would be if it rides this move back up very quickly. So that would be confirmed that people like you are stepping in and buying when they see a really good opportunity.
So there was a project 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, called ETHLand, and had this idea that you could use your crypto to lend and make some money. Essentially, it was one of the early companies creating this new idea called decentralized finance, which 3.5 years ago, nobody was using the term decentralized finance. And this project ETHLand suffered just like this in the early days, and the price just, was just floundering at an extremely low market cap. But as their project started to get some traction, even in the bear market, it's one of the things that did incredible during the bear market once it started to turn around. Now, what I like about Bumper is they're rolling out, I think they're having a closed alpha, and they might have an open alpha where they open up to test with more people. Then they're going to do a beta, and then they're ready for rollout on. This will allow people a different way to hedge against risk. So it's trying to explain it, Paul. Let's see if I can do it justice. I've had the co-founder on a number of times who explains it eloquently. But essentially, say you want to protect your ETH. You want to protect your downside. Say you're a large institution. You have $10 million worth of ETH. And ETH, say, is trading at $10,000. I'm just using round numbers. So they have 10 million in ETH, and ETH is trading at $1,000 a piece, so, or $10,000 a piece, and they want to protect it, so they can lock in and protect it at the, say, 85% rate of what the current price is, 90 or 95%. So say they decide they want to protect it at the 95%. So they're going to have to pay a little bit of a premium, like an insurance, but it's not an insurance. And let's say the price goes down to 8,500. So it's below their threshold. So they didn't get stopped out because they haven't actually cashed their position in, but they could cash in their position at any time and get $9,500 per ETH because they protected at that price. Or they can keep an eye on it and say they think that was just a temporary pullback and it's going to run higher, and then it does, and it goes up to 20,000. They never got stopped out. They didn't cash in their position. And so it's in some ways better than a stop loss. In some way, and it's definitely different than a stop loss. And the mechanisms behind it that handle all of this to happen is different. But say it goes down to the 8,500 and then it keeps dropping all the way to 3,000. They can go ahead and cash that in and get 9,500 per ETH back. And then if they want, they could then rebuy all the ETH and more at, the $3,000 per ETH price. So it's kind of like options and insurance had a baby. The way that they handle this has never been possible before until smart contracts. And what backs this is people staking USDC and earning a return. Essentially, those premiums are paid out to those that are using USDC to back it. And what's happening on the back end is once the ETH goes down to 9,500, it actually uses the USDC to buy ETH at that price. And so that's what backs or guarantees, I guess, on the back end of what is driving this. So it actually converts it, sells that ETH to USDC at that price. Then it essentially rebuys it once it hits that price on the way back up. So
cool. Yeah, let's say I love that description. It's like options and insurance had a baby. That's great.
Yeah,
I have to remember that.
Options came around like 50 years ago, and it was an amazing technology that changed the world. That this has the potential that this, if this works in the way that they have it planned out, and they've got it all modeled out, and they've done some testing. Now they're doing further testing on their actual programming. And if this works, this is going to change the world, much as Aave, which ETHLend rebranded to Aave and changed DeFi, and those that were holding ETHLend, which became Aave, some of them made 1,000x returns, 1,000x over a period of about a year to 18 months. So I use that position to rebuy some more. That's what I'm hoping happens with this. Always know that you don't know. It could fail. Something could happen. The company's technology could come online and maybe they run out of cash and it goes belly up. If you think of yourself as a VC investor, an early stage investor, then you're thinking about it right when you're investing in crypto, because it's very early stage. The things that do work out can be very, very lucrative. In some things, even though they look great, sometimes it won't. So that's the right expectation to have for this. And with that said, I picked up some more.
Cool. Right. So, yeah. I'm definitely more interested after your explanation. So yeah, that sounds good. I think we have talked about them before as well. I do remember you mentioning them. But yes, very, very interesting.
Let's take a look at. Do you mind if we go over to Umbrella?
Sure. Yeah, I've got that already loaded. So yeah, Umbrella was one of the ones that I bought a long time ago, and this was on this inverted head and shoulders pattern, which I bought it here, and it went up. We had a retracement, and then it negated, and it's been a really strong downward trend, which is it's been a bit frustrating if I'm honest with you, because it's not held any support. The trend has been fairly smooth to the downside, when I think it would be better if we flip this over. What we really want to see is this sort of type of trend trending to the upside. But it's had a kind of blow off base here, or there was a lot of very heavy selling, which normally would have been associated with capitulation and the market going back up, but that hasn't encouraged buying in either. And at the moment, it's still in a consolidation phase that's given how far it's moved down and the fact that it's been very reluctant on many occasions, on a few occasions that I've been talking about, where it should really have turned around. I think we've got to be ultra cautious with it. Now, having said that, it is at the very least holding its current range. So if we go back to the kind of the middle of June, so sort of 12th of June is where this consolidation started. It's rallied above it, it's gone below it, the central kind of point here at 0.0189, and it's been oscillating up and down. So it's trying to base, which is a good start, but it hasn't done enough yet to convince me it's a buy. Now, what I do like about it is this technical point, this support point, became this resistance point at 2.5 or 2.35 cents. If it can rally through 2.35 cents, I'd be encouraged to buy it. And then I'd be looking to place a stop around 1.8 cents. So those are my parameters for it. Until it does that, I think we've got to sit on the sideline, or certainly I would sit on the sidelines and wait. Now, I know some people will want to jump in early, hoping that we'll go higher. That's fair enough, but I don't really do that. I'd like to wait for the price action to confirm. But in terms of a project, I've got to be honest, I can't even remember what they do. But as you see,
Chainlink, with the way that they handle things, they can transact, or basically they're a price oracle, so they can provide more updates on price more frequently than Chainlink does at a lower price. Right. And so Chainlink hasn't done all that great. The chart for Chainlink looks similar to this with a little bit of differences, but DeFi has been off of people's minds. When DeFi comes back strongly on people's minds, that's when this one will probably do really well, as will Chainlink and some of the other projects like that. So, and Bumper and a lot of what we're looking at. I mean, the general market has been suffering. So for me, this is a wait too, even though I like the project. And I spoke with the founders once was it October? A lot of our community made a lot of money, and that they were putting a large marketing effort and everything in that month. So short-term swing trade, I could see all the money they were going to pour into marketing. And so I'll talk to the community about that. I bought some and made a nice flip on that. I did sell off my position, and I'm looking for a good re-entry. So not quite where I want to see it. It's just that chart isn't saying enough to me yet. But it's getting cheap. The total market cap is under 4 million.
Oh, wow. 4 million, that's not a lot at all. So yeah, hopefully you're about to come back in. But yeah, 4 million.
I was trying to hit that back button again. It's killing me today. Let me
no worries. But I was just saying 4 million, that is like, wow, how tiny is that? So
let me see if I had that even right. I might have been wrong on that. No, market cap's under 3 million. It's at 2.8 million.
Right.
So yeah,
So it's tiny. It's absolutely tiny. So yeah, definitely. It's so interesting. So interesting. So yeah, as you say, DeFi has been under a cloud, and when the whole sector turns, it's at least worth knowing about these projects already, to know which ones would be good and interesting to get into. But yeah, those are my trigger points.
Let's take rapid fire so that we still have a number of suggestions from the viewers. And if you're viewing this, you want to make some suggestions for next week, put in up to 2 suggestions. If you put more than 2, I'm just going to have to pick 2 of them that we can look at. So our next suggestion is UOS, which is Ultra is actually the name of it. UOS is the ticker symbol. And we've looked at this one, but it's been a little while.
Yeah, so this is good in terms of it's trying to form an inverse head and shoulders. So we've had this very strong downward trend. It's ended here. The trend is now moving up. We can draw a nice little trend line, and we also have got, it's like right on that trend line right now. So we are at a bit of a crossroads with it. We don't want to see that trend line break. But here, this is left shoulder, this is the head, this is the right shoulder. So we should really have been off to the races on the 11th of August. And I would like it to have been trading up towards 55 cents, this sort of area here, because as I say, this was the base. Let me show you where I'm drawing the neckline of the head and shoulders. It would be around here that it triggered. So this was the trigger point here around the 11th of August, and it should really hold over that line. Now, because some of these projects are thinly traded, I do allow a little bit more room for them to come back below the line, but I don't want to see them go below what I consider to be the right shoulder. The right shoulder low for me is here at 28, 29 cents. So it can go lower, but if it breaks that, then I'm sort of turning from being biased to the upside to very, very cautious. I'd actually go neutral. And then if it starts to head towards this low here, I would then go negative. But for the moment, I'm saying I'm going to stick with the bullish view on a kind of 60-40 basis. So I'd say it's a cautious buy if I can add that kind of prefix to it. Because it's trying to base and we've got a nice trend line. So it's currently above it. And, it's a little disappointing that it didn't continue here, but it's still in an upward trend. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, for this project, think of Steam, and this is a decentralized competitor to Steam. And Steam has purposely actually excluded NFT games, which I think is a huge mistake on their part that they will rue that day. And that makes it wide open for Ultra, which has been building for, their token's been tradable for at least a year now. In fact, I can look at so wow, 2019, mid 2019. So it's been tradable for a while. It's on a big pullback. I like the price. I recently actually sold my Ultra, not because I don't love the future, but because I only have so much funds, and I rolled that into OMI when OMI was even cheaper than it is now. And so I like this one. I don't currently have a position, even though I like what the charts are saying on this. Long term, I just really, really like where OMI's price is, and I like where this price is. So sometimes when I move money around, it's not that I don't like Ultra. I really like this project. I think it's going to do well. Rolled it into buying more OMI because I think OMI got too cheap.
Got you. Yeah. Interesting. Great.
Right. Let's take a look over at Aioz. We haven't talked about this one in a while, and this is kind of a decentralized competitor to YouTube. And bringing streaming video into the metaverse in some ways, providing an alternative to YouTube. They did really well shortly after launch, which was right in that bull market from before, and their price hit like 300x, and their price has pulled back significantly.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's still a wait, verging on a sell actually, because this is very constricted price action. Whenever you see the market going into what's called a triangle, you've got to be very careful that it wants to continue the prior trend. So this is looking quite triangular to me, and it needs to throw this off before I can turn bullish. So it's pressing the lower sort of support of this triangle, which technically it seems to be trading around quite nicely. So if you drawn these lines in here and this line in here, it stayed very nicely within these parameters. Now, obviously, one of these lines has to break, but because the prior trend is down, it gets the bias for now. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to say this is at the very least a wait and probably a sell. But I love the sound of a decentralized YouTube. I mean, that would be brilliant for many, many reasons. So, where I would start picking this up would be through 12 cents, because fantastic resistance there, and it really held a support. So there's a lot of activity around that point that if it could throw that level and have it behind it, then I would get quite excited about it. But for the moment, unfortunately, I've got to be a bit cautious there, because there's nothing at the moment to say buy it.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen again. Let's see, share screen. And I'm looking at this on CoinGecko. Let's see, right here. And their price has gotten savage to even lower. Some of why is one of the concerns I had with it was that there was only a small amount in circulation. Well, we see this circulating supply has gone way up from where it was before, a lot closer to this total supply. So some kind of team tokens, project ecosystem tokens, or other things have now been vested and dumped on the market. So that's what's continued to put pressure on this price coming down. And that's the risk when so much. And I have some of this. I have a bunch of it. I'm looking for a place to buy more and dollar cost average more into this. But I'm going to wait till those charts look a little bit better before I do. Whatever vesting is going on is probably continuing. Is pushing that price even lower.
Right.
So for me, it's just a wait. I'm not going to sell what I have. I'm not going to sell what I have. But for me, it is a sell from the standpoint of the price going to go lower. The reason I'm not going to sell is because I'm looking for that opportunity to buy some more. And this is tradable on Uniswap, PancakeSwap. It's even tradable on KuCoin, which is nice. So maybe on KuCoin, what I'm going to do is put in a buy order so I don't have to keep watching this. And if it hits, gosh, about 2 cents, I'm very, very happy to buy a whole bunch more.
Cool. Right.
All right, let's jump over to Dafi, and then we'll really only have time for Dafi and then Wanchain.
Okay, no problem. So Dafi is, unfortunately, I can say very quickly, this is a sell. So this is very strong downward trend. It's broken the low. Let me move into the chart so you can see it a bit more clearly. Right, there we go. So you can see how it was bouncing around here, and no sign of a bullish move, and no surge, impulsive upward trend, no break of resistance. In fact, it did the opposite. It took the low out. Now, if it throws this off quickly and then comes back into the zone above this 0.0032 level, that would be a good sign. But whilst it's below, I'm ultra cautious. So be careful. That looks like it's going down.
Yeah. Yep. For me, that's definitely a wait as well. Let's jump over. I believe, if I'm remembering this right, it's in the DeFi sector. So, like a lot of people struggling. Let's jump over.
That makes sense.
Let's jump over to Wanchain, which actually we have a strategic relationship with. I love Wanchain. I'm very biased. I've been a big fan of this for a long time, and the price has been hitting some good points. So
yeah, this is looking good. I mean, the chart is looking good. It's reversed out. It's trying to make a larger reversal pattern. So I see this as the head. Sorry, I see this as the left shoulder. This is the head, and the right shoulder is forming here. Now, I would have accepted it formed and completed if it had as it took out this high at this point here. Let me just zoom in to show you. So as it took out this resistance at 24 cents with this bar, that would have been enough for me to say that the reversal was complete. But instead of surging, which is what it should have done, there was some good volume there, so there was obviously some agreement about that. It's still going sideways. So overall, it's still in this upward trend. We've got this trend line. If it comes back and then goes up again, it will be doing something similar to Bitcoin, but it's looking more base-like than a lot of the other altcoins. So that's why I still like it. Now, where I get more excited and move from like a 60-40 to a 70-30 is if it can get through this 25 cents level, because there is a big buildup of resistance through there. So if it can squeeze through there, get through 25 cents, the next stopping point will be 30 cents. So whilst it's above this trend line, I think it's a buy.
Yeah, fundamentally, Wanchain has been working on trustless bridging systems between the chains, right? So trustless bridges are set up in a way that you don't have to trust that somebody that's holding those tokens are going to act bad. They're not going to act bad, and what the guarantee is, what they have to lose versus what they could gain out of cheating. What they could lose is much higher than what they could gain. And so that's what a trustless bridge is. With some of the bridge hacks like the not so recent, but the Axie bridge hack that stole hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ETH, it is making people think about trustless bridges versus trusted bridges. And that's not the only recent hack. There have been a number of it. And so sometimes when you're offering a better technology, people aren't focused on you until it becomes evident why you need trustless bridges over trusted bridges. Because trusted bridges, you're relying with trust that somebody won't cheat, but their incentives to cheat or for somebody to hack their account and steal that money, those incentives are very high. So great job on Wanchain. They have some of the best engineers in the industry working on this tech. It's sometimes when I talk to them, the conversation goes way over my head, even though I had a couple of years of computer science and programming. Just very, very sharp people.
Brilliant.
Cool. Yeah, that's all we have time for today. Thank you, everyone, for your suggestions. We got a slew of suggestions. Some ones we weren't able to get into this week were Telos, TLOS, Selframe, and Spores. So if we have time, we'll have to include those in next week. Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your picks. See you next week.
Yes, and the viewers, I get it. The crypto market is slow right now. Just know that good decisions made during these pullbacks lead to life-changing ones when the market turns around, and it always does. You're in the right place. Everyone likes to come in after the massive gains that have already happened, thinking that they're going to continue to happen. The best time to be here is when the massive pullbacks have happened, when many are wondering if there will happen even more. But that's literally when the cheap buying happens. And if you're going to make a lot through crypto, don't you have to buy low in order to sell high? You do. And so that's what so many people miss, that simple part of it. This rap is for all of you to reinforce the principles that I share. I wrote the words, and Charlie from the UK performed them. Thanks so much.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, right before you could was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. Buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss, cause I always made the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how, cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong can soon become a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crafting. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past makes it time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how, cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I'll follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down, addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.